This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Let's Talk Life with Alicia. And for all of you who have listened to the show before, we all know that Alicia is a therapist. She's a mom, and sometimes I think you're a mom more than you are a therapist, a daughter, a sister, whatever. Um, and I have to say, you're doing a great job of being a mother because your two young kids seem to be very, very happy. So
Thank you.
kudos to you. Um, and the other day, if you were listening to Lessons Learned, you may have heard me talking with Aimee Neiman. And,
Hi.
you know, Aimee, at the end of that discussion, I said to you, I need to have you back on. I need other people to get to meet you because towards the end of that conversation, we talked about the change of your career. And then I saw something posted on Facebook about you won some sort of award.
Yeah, I had actually just found that out. So for those who didn't listen the other day, I am currently a realtor. I am in my first year of doing real estate. I love it so far. And I was very surprised to find out that I was one of the top producers in my office for the month of February. And my brokerage, we have like, close to 500 people, but my office itself has about 150 maybe, and there is about 12 of us on that list for top producers. So that was very exciting. I've never had, I didn't expect it, so it was really, really nice.
And what I found amazing about that is that, when we talked on Monday about the couple of years it took you to get your diagnosis and to make the changes, um, you were always talking in that positive mode. And then at the end of the conversation, you mentioned, oh, and I'm an artist and a photographer. And I thought, wow, what an inspiration. Because sometimes when we get those diagnoses or we're hurting for whatever reason, okay, our life sort of stops in its tracks and we think we can't do anything else. And between you and Alicia, um, I know the two of you have both been through numerous things that at times you could have pulled the covers over your head and said, no more, leave me alone. But
I have done that.
but you then eventually creep out of the covers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
But we know there are a lot of people that don't.
Right.
that's true.
So, Aimee, starting with you, let's talk about, you know, how you determined to change career paths.
So, I had always been in retail since I started working. Um I I do not have a college degree. I have my my real estate license, which required a few classes, 120 hours, but I do not have a college degree. And personally, I'm the kind of person, I'm like a free spirit. I didn't want to do it. I hated school, so I did not want to do it. So I didn't have a lot of options. So I was in retail, and um at my old store, I had worked at Five Below. I had worked my way up to assistant manager. I was there about 5 years. I think I was an assistant manager for maybe 4 of them. Then I ended up switching to J.C. Penney to be a manager there for some higher pay. And I actually really liked that job. And if it wasn't for my illnesses, I honestly would probably still be there. I love real estate, but it wasn't really something I'd been considering at the time. Well, around the same time, I had um, my rheumatologist tell me, Aimee, if you stay in retail, the progression of your disease is going to be a lot worse. And she told me you could be a cripple by the time you're 40 and just different stuff. So I knew, okay, I can't speed the progression of this. If I want a good prognosis, if I want to be able to, live a somewhat normal life, I have to change jobs. So actually, the very next day, when I was still at Penny's, I was filling in jewelry, and there was a customer who came through there, wasn't, just browsing, just walking through, And because, part of my job as a manager is sales, I, just tried to talk to her about some sales going on. This woman who didn't want to buy anything ended up buying like an $800 ring. And so she told me, hey, your sales skills are really, really great. Have you ever considered selling real estate? And I said, I have people who do real estate in my family, but I hadn't really thought about it for me, but I'll let you know. And so the thought just sort of sat in the back of my head. And I ended up a couple weeks later actually having to have an intestinal surgery, and I had to be off work anyway. And just that about 3 or 4 weeks I had not working, I realized how much better my back felt, how much better my joints felt. And I said, wow. So you know what? I'm going to do this. So I left my job. I went to my real estate school. It was only 3 weeks, but every day, it's just like 120 hours. Took my test, and all this was right when COVID hit. So I sort of got sidetracked for a little bit, but I've been doing it ever since, and I'm very happy with my career path.
So, unlike many people, you found that diamond in the rough, so to speak.
Yeah.
And said, hey, I'm going to make a change. And anybody who's made a change this past year, I have to say kudos to you, because this has been the
Thank you.
toughest year that most of us have ever lived or ever expected to live through.
Mhm.
So, Alicia, I know you've made changes in your life too. Okay,
Yes.
many. Um,
Perpetual changes. Yes.
and it seems like you finally found that comfort zone of where you like to be as a therapist. So, what got you to decide to do that? I mean, what made you all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm tired with everything else I'm doing. Now it's time to go back to school and get my degree.
Okay, so um as a child, and I fell in love with ballet. I was 3 years old and I saw the Nutcracker, which is hysterical, at my what will be my children's high school if I choose, but at West Bloomfield High School. And I fell in love with the Sugar Plum Fairy, and that was November, a long, long time ago, 1979, 1980, and and I fell in love with dance, and that's all I ever did. Aimee, I don't know if you've seen any of my podcasts, but I have a daughter, Bailey, who mimics that, but it's not my force of her. She just loves to dance. And it's funny because everyone's like, oh, look, we're used to this, because my daughter will tap dance wherever she feels like, or, she's a constant ball of motion. And I took that very seriously. So I did not take academics very seriously at all. And even when I became an adolescent, it was boys and dance, which the two don't go together either. And then when I was 16, I was at boarding school, and I was practicing for an audition for a professional dance company. And I went up on point and I came down on my knee, and that injury changed my life, my complete trajectory of life. Still did not take academics seriously. And knee pain every single day is not fun. But I outgrew that, and I did palms and I still danced. But I knew that professionally, and I should actually put in I'm 5'7", all legs, but I have boobs and hips, so I don't even have a dancer's body. Just not in the cards. But then after graduation, I was not an academic, and I don't not even kid myself that I was. I opened a bartending school. I actually bought one and then reopened it. And so before I was legally able to drink, I was producing bartenders all across Michigan.
That's awesome.
So, but then I wanted to make a difference in the world, and I didn't think being a bartender was really making a difference in the world. I should say I did bartend, and I do love bartending. There is an art to it, and it was a lot of fun. And any chance I could get behind a bar and mix drinks still to this day at 44, I absolutely would. But then I decided to go back to school, and I wanted to be pre-med, because I guess you just decide these things. So at 22, I went to community college and took biology, and really, embraced the other part of me, what I loved. And I was going to be a surgeon, except there's a very big thing when you don't really apply yourself in elementary school and learn basic math, doing things harder as they go along. And so we all joke I don't have the math gene. So I went to community college, but I wanted to stand out when I was going to apply to medical school, and psychology and the human mind have always fascinated me. So I was going to be a psychology major and pre-med, because one thing about me, I can not do anything just half-assly. So it's go big or go home, and then I'm going to blow it up. So, but then I got into the school I wanted to, which was the University of Michigan, and with third generation, and there was no pressure there. And I had psychology professors and an anthropology professor who were like, why are you making yourself nuts and sick over math? Like, you've literally made 2 tutors cry. Nobody wants to talk to you. Like, because I just don't get it. Like, I needed these, I think I needed to take pre-calc in order to take organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, to take the MCAT. And I was adding another year onto college. And I apparently am really good at psychology. All right, cool. And I should say this, cultural anthropology doesn't pay the bills. Otherwise, I would totally be sitting underneath a coconut tree, pondering the meaning of life while observing other people's behavior, which I love to do. So, but I had professors who were just like, you can still be a doctor and you can still make a difference in the world.
That's
And
awesome.
so that's kind of my journey. And so I spent, I got my master's degree in counseling, and I got a specialist, and then I got my doctoral in clinical and humanistic psychology. But I also wanted to be a mom. So I'm in there, produced 2 wonderful children that I adore and love to death. But, this is my career now. But I have much more other passions. I mean, eventually I'm going to own a body shop because I love to race cars. And I love classic cars, and I want to restore them. And so that was there's always something going on. But, and I love, my main thing is I do want to make a difference in the world, and I want to help people. But that's why I kind of smirked. Do I call you Auntie Kiki, or do I call you Karen at this point in time?
You can call me either one. It makes no difference.
But, I have ADHD. There's just no question about that. And my mind's always going. And I have so many different facets of who I am that, I mean, who knows, 5 years from now, I could open up a dance studio for like Irish dancing, or like, or do a travel blog, 10 years down the road.
I'm the same way, where, you have a bunch of different ideas, and just a matter of getting those ideas into actual actions, I guess.
I need to hit the lottery, because honestly, if I hit the lottery, I could have, so I did 4 years ago open up my own clinic, which was always something I wanted to do. So I can expand that and do retreats and buy a place up north. And so that'll get my happiness up north, and then incorporate yoga, and I could have my body shop, and I could have Midland racing, and I can go into politics, and I can do all of these things. So if somebody could just give me numbers, I will split it. I will not be greedy. And then, because it's not that it's a boredom thing, because I don't ever get bored. I love what I do. And I really, truly, the way people getting to see them at their worst and then making progress towards their best, is one of the greatest things that, I love, and it's not even my accomplishment, it's watching their accomplishment. But like I could totally do therapy, run a body shop, and I don't sleep either. So it's like, I could own a nightclub. At one point in time, I wanted to do that. So there's so much. But I also have a ruptured disc. So you talk about, limitations, and the doctor was like, well, good news, you can never wear heels again. And I literally cried because I had thousands upon thousands of dollars of, high heel shoes. And I was like, well, wait, hold on. Like, let's play negotiation with your spinal cord, right? So, he was like, well, nothing more than like, 4.5 inches. And they're like, oh, and you're going to have a C-section. And I was like, well, that's not a big deal because I've already had one and that was already planned. And I remember my mom walking into my room, and I was like, Mom, like, this is the worst thing ever because I love heels. And I also tried to explain the doctor of, if I wear flat shoes, I trip. I can run in heels. I can do anything except walk on the ice. Can't do that. But flat-footed, like shoes, forget it. I'm gonna be falling.
Than me, I can't walk anything and over, like I can barely do wedges.
Oh, yeah, no, that's so it's the opposite, and yeah, but that's, you want to talk about care, like everything that I have been through in my life and the situations I've put myself in. I mean, for the fact of I'm laying, in a hospital bed, 8 months pregnant, and the worst, and the baby's fine, so I was fine. It wasn't about, oh, you could possibly have to have, back surgery. It's, oh my God, I have thousands of dollars of shoes in my closet that I'm never going to wear again. And the covers literally like went up over my head because I couldn't move. And I'm sitting there like, my life has been altered. And really, that was really
that
I still wear shoes.
So I have celiac disease also. So, that means I can't have any gluten or anything. So when I first got diagnosed with gluten, when I first got diagnosed with celiac disease, my very first thought wasn't, oh, what kind of damage do my intestines have? It's, oh my God, I can't have mozzarella sticks.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you go through the most, like, and I have to say, the most asinine thoughts, like,
yeah,
who cares the fact of you can't wear over 5-inch heels, which also, by the way, I didn't realize that most of people were calling my heels at the time stripper shoes because it just didn't occur to me. I mean,
were they over 5 inches?
Mhm.
Oh
yeah.
5.5. I think the average heel that I had was about 5.5. That was on average. So I've learned how to walk in 4-inch heels. Because it feels so low to me, even still to this day. But yeah, you have these life crises of like, oh God, like these are altering things. Like I with my back of like, okay, he's like, you're never gonna walk on a treadmill again. Okay, well, or run on a treadmill. Well, I was like, well, I don't run on a treadmill, I walk on one, but okay. And then I was like, well, what about what do they call them? It escaped my head because I can't even use an elliptical. Yep, no, but you can use a stationary bike, and I'm like, oh gee, yay, that's fantastic. But then it's like other things that I don't think about, like whitewater rafting. I probably should not go whitewater rafting, but I probably will. And I do shit all the time and I'm not supposed to do because I am Wonder Woman. I'm convinced myself of that. Car racing. I'm sure that I should not take turns as fast as I do. Or if I want to like go off-roading, I probably not the best for my back. Shoveling snow is not. but I mean I don't want the surgery. I'm too young, I'm still too active, so I was like, well, what can I do to prevent it? Well, up my Pilates game, lose weight, which I did all of these things. And I refused to live on pain meds. I refused a ton of things. And I sometimes forget about it, to be honest, because it's like, if I sat there and went, oh, you know what, like kayaking I can do, but whitewater rafting, probably not. Hiking Machu Picchu, which I really would like to do. Uh, am I going to be able to do it? I think if I put my mind to it, probably. I just need to make sure that there's like some good drugs I take afterwards. Because I want to have that experience. So I sometimes forget it. Well, we've been talking about this too, the pandemic. I go into denial about it sometimes, just for the fact of like, I have to live my life according to what's good for me.
Right.
And you talked about that a little bit the other day, Aimee, that you love to hike, and
Yes.
hiking is not the best thing for you, especially if it's up hills and things like that.
Right.
But you went out with your friends because it was important to you.
Right. And I think the biggest thing is just making sure you find your limit. And that's what I was saying the other day is something that I have a lot of trouble with, especially once I get involved. Like when I was doing photography and walking around with those friends, I wasn't thinking at the time, oh, I better make sure not to overdo it. I'm just doing it. I'm having fun. And then it's not till after I realize, crap, I overdid it, And it's one of those things that I try, there's so much like how you were saying, Alicia, about how there's so much like your mind wants to do so many different ideas. It's like I'm like that too. Like there's a lot of motivation of a lot of things I want to do and try, but I know realistically that with the health issues I have that I shouldn't do some of them and I know I can't do other things. So it's just a matter of finding that balance, which is for me one of the harder things because there is stuff I'm not ready to give up, you know, but there I just have to manage to make it work somehow, So if I can't hike a mountain, maybe I can still, I don't know, hike a hill, I guess, like
Or go partially, like, well, I don't know. I say, oh, well, maybe here's an alternative, partially up a mountain. No, you know what? Knowing me, I would be like, oh, I'll only go midway. And then I'll be like, oh, well, I could go
yeah,
back down, or I'll just
I'm
go
already
up and then
halfway
maybe.
there. Yeah.
So one of the things I thought the two of you really had in common, um, as a psychologist, Alicia, you help people try to filter what's going on in their brain, how they're feeling emotionally, the changes that they want to make, or maybe
Mhm.
other people are telling them to make. Um, and you, Aimee, you mentioned that your artwork is based around the brain and the heart. So tell us a little bit about what drew you to those two body parts.
So I have always sort of liked anatomy. When I was growing up as a teenager, how Alicia, what you were saying, like how your career paths, you want to do this, this, this. As a teenager, I wanted it to do for years. I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. So the brain, I guess, goes all the way back there. I've always been interested in psychology too, but I ended up, with not wanting to go to college. Obviously, it's not going to, can't do that without college. So I ended up doing something else. But regardless, I've always been fascinated just by the brain and human action, interaction, the way the mind works. Still to this day, I'll say, isn't it amazing that like dogs can have personalities just like people, And so the brain is something that I've just always been fascinated with. As for the human heart, um, I don't really have a good answer. I guess it's just because I've always liked anatomy that the heart is something but back in high school when I was, I'm 25, but back when I was in high school and I had my art classes and stuff in there, I was in AP art and I did human heart projects a lot in there and that just sort of even stuck with me after I was out of school. And now even when I doodle, like I'm the kind of person I, I always have to keep my hands moving, my hands tapping my fingers or doing something. So a lot of times I doodle and even just my doodling, could be human hearts. So the hearts and the brains are probably definitely the things that I do the most with either painting or drawing. I do eyes sometimes too, but hearts and brains are usually it.
So
as
do you
far
have
as
a
this.
picture of a brain that you can show us?
I do. I actually, well, I have something right here. This is, it says conflict and it's a heart and a brain. Now, this is, I made this a few years ago. Um, there is an art technique called printmaking. And in printmaking, what you do is you carve little linoleum blocks. And I carved one in the shape of a heart and one in the shape of a brain. And then what you do is you roll ink over it and then you stamp the ink. So it's sort of like, easy way to explain it is make your own stamp,
Sure.
but it's so I have, that's something, I have a heart and a brain. Let's see. Another one here. This is a very old one. This one I actually did in high school, but it has a heart and a brain. Well, and several brains. It's
Several brains.
That's
yeah,
really cool.
brains in the background and then
Love that.
a heart here. So I did that actually in high school. Those I have a couple other ones, but I don't have them out. I have a bunch of it sort of stored away, but those are
Sure.
some of the ones that I like the best. I have this was from high school too. This one won an award. So
That's really cool.
Love
thank
that.
you. That was done the same technique, printmaking. This one is recent. I just did this a couple months ago. This is a human heart. Stay
That's
true. I sort of messed up on the lining here, but I don't really care. It's for me, so it's not, it doesn't need to be award winning. Let's see. This one is a bit older. This isn't anatomy, but it's good. So simple. It's a little apple oil. It's an oil.
Absolutely.
Let's see. I got this guy. This is watercolor. This was from 2011. So I have a range here. I have some of this stuff being old and some of it new. And this is sort of on a project I did about technology, sort of like how, wrapped around the world. So how it affects the world. So this is oil pastels and some colored pencil.
Love
So
it.
that's everything I have out. But if you see that Marilyn Monroe in the background
Yes.
there, I
Yes.
painted that too.
Oh, my husband would be in love. He mourns Marilyn Monroe.
Aw. I've done a couple of those. I have the same one I painted for my grandfather. My grandmother, she's gone now, but my grandpa still has it. And I two copies. I have the one I kept, and then I made one for them too. And that was actually done in like 2010. I was 15, so
So when you show that one with the brains in the background and the heart in front, okay,
Yes.
this one.
that to me is so much of what happens in therapy.
Yeah,
We have all these thoughts going through our head,
Hmm.
but our heart is telling us one thing, but we let our brain sometimes diminish what's going on in our heart.
right.
I know when I started doing these podcasts, and especially when Alicia and I did one about 4 years ago,
Yeah.
I found, and I've gone back and listened to some of those, and I realized that it was my heart always talking, and I was blocking out the things that I should know in my head. And, I listened to them and I thought, wow, if I had let them come together, I probably would have healed faster. But instead, they were fighting each other. Yeah, I know. It happens. You tried
You
it.
just want to wrap it up in a cute little package, and I'm as the show the names after. Yeah, no, I'm not. We don't live in should-haves or ought-tos.
Well, and I understand that. But
It's a very real thing though, having like I'm the kind of person, I am definitely more on the emotional side than the logical side. Does that mean that I don't find logic in things? No. Like, of course I am going to be logical, but on instinct, it's my instinct to think and feel, with emotion rather than logic. So a big thing that has helped me in the past is just is using mindfulness, trying to be mindful to balance, your emotion and your logic. And there's some things, where you shouldn't think logic. If someone passes away, if there's, something devastating, yeah. Or if you're even really happy, if you fall in love, yeah, that's the kind of thing, you should be emotional about and not want to change. But then there's also other things, you can't try to be solution based, like, for example, Karen, with your friend with Parkinson's, that right there, even though that's a, devastating possible diagnosis, at that point, that's where some logic should come in and say, well, wait, let's weigh the issue here. Let's get a second opinion, and so on. So I think just finding that balance is a big important thing here.
Can I put the smack down on what I believe?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're not floating heads and we're not floating bodies. There is the mind body connection. So there's your head, and then there's your heart. And so all of our life experiences shape how we think and actually how we feel. And so, and I say this constantly, what's right for Karen might not be what's right for me. And how we cope or how we deal, dysfunction only really truly, there's pathology, my belief system, how I was trained in a certain theory, is that abnormal is when it creates dysfunction in your life.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
And so I remember, this just popped into my head. They found a lump. I was 27. I had just gotten married for the second time. And I was like, my grandmother died of breast cancer. And yeah, I'm a smoker, and I, have not the healthiest of lifestyles. And I remember walking into my parents' house because I didn't know how to schedule a mammogram. And I walked in and I looked at both of my parents, and I was very calm over the fact of, so I'm going to freeze my ovaries. I'm getting a double mastectomy. And oh, by the way, they found a lump and I need to schedule my mammogram. And what? So I just want to let you know, this is like, and they're like, have you spoken to my husband at the time? And I was like, well, no, it's my body. There's no speaking to him about this. This is the plan. When they find out it's breast cancer, I am going to, it was very matter of fact, very methodical, very like, this is what it was. And it wasn't until, that night that I sat down and was like, holy shit, I could possibly have cancer invading my body. And of course, then it wasn't just, oh, it's a lump. I had imagined that I had literally like cancer all over my body. And that I was but I was not going to die. So so I didn't kill myself off that night. I literally had this big pity party of, I'm no longer going to be a female because they're taking all my reproductive organs, and I'm no longer going to be feminine. And but that's okay because I've already had a breast reduction, and so I'm going to get implants, and then I'll get a tummy tuck, and I will never. And it didn't dawn on me too of, well, I'll just get a surrogate because I'm never going to carry a kid, so I can just get a tummy tuck and everything else that I want done. And all while I'm crying my eyes out, all very logical and all very irrational, all at the same time, and probably really painful. And so I would make a joke about it because of my uncomfortableness, and I'm very inappropriate. And so it was like, which even when I'm not uncomfortable, I'm making jokes of things and very, very inappropriate. But that is what it is. But I mean, this whole notion, that's why I started with this of, I disagree with kind of both of you, of the sense of like, we are who we are. And there are people who are completely disconnected, and they don't come to me and in their life is saying, oh, I'm disconnected. They come to me of going like, oh crap, my relationships aren't working. And I am not the guru of relationships. I suck at them. I'm really good at them, and I suck at the same time. Am I really good about my heart sometimes taking over my logical side? Absolutely. Am I really good at compartmentalizing? Like, absolutely. But like, you have to think, we have two organs, right? The brain and the heart, which I think is fascinating that you're drawing a connection between the both of them. And so you have, and they're both absolutely like, hearts do really weird shit. They have these four chambers, and they can overcompensate and undercompensate and fail or misfire and have these miracles. And then you have a brain that can, through development, and over the corpus callosum and all this other shit, where it can be like, oh yeah, no, we can do this, or if this part of the brain shuts down, we can do this. And then we just have people who have not had surgical lobotomies in the world, but they're just walking around with lobotomies, and you're like, wow, like, did your brain actually function at all? And then to not even use it at capacity. And it's like, how do we do this? Why are our brains so big? And yet we don't use them at full capacity, or we use our heart sometimes when it's not at full capacity, or when you have a strong emotion, right? Like when people die of heartbreak, or like when you've lost the love of your life and your heart legit feels like it is shards and pieces. Or like the death of a family member, where you feel like you've lost something, and you can literally feel like your limb isn't there. And so that's your brain. That's not your actual heart beating. Your blood's still circulating. It's
That
still
reminds me
working.
of the phantom limbs that the people, amputees, that they have. It's a perfect example of, that's their brain right there. They don't have that limb, but that's their brain.
Right. And so the body is like this huge, incredible mystery in a lot of ways, and we can scientifically explain a whole bunch of crap, and then there's stuff that we just can't. Like, why is it like when you experience heartbreak, that you literally feel like your whole body is being taken from you? Like, that doesn't, it's not. Like you're like, you're like, oh wow, or a panic attack. Like, why is it for some people who have these symptoms and then who don't have those? And so, and it's funny because it's not my job to piece people back together again. I walk on a journey with them, and I like to use car analogies because I'm good at it. But like, I present all the avenues, or I'm a spoke in the wheel. Okay, we're in the epicenter, and you can go this way, this way, this way, this way. And and it's your choice. And if you don't like going down that avenue, make a right turn. Put your indicator on first, but make a right turn or make a left turn. And so that's why it makes me crazy. You know this, Karen, when people say like, oh, you give advice. Well, sometimes I will, because I'm very real. And I don't have a committee upstairs in my brain. There's no edit or mute button. It just literally comes out. Impulse control, maybe, ADHD, malfunction in the brain. That's what it is. And I find it, Aimee, your artwork. So one thing about art therapy is that we're never there to interpret, right? That this is a part of yourself that you're giving up, or you can use it in a metaphor way and all of these things. But it's like, okay, so you have a physical ailment, and then I correct me if I'm wrong, but you never said what your autoimmune disease was. So is it rheumatoid arthritis?
It's actually ankylosing spondylitis. So that is a form of arthritis. It's where your vertebrae in your spine start to fuse together because of the amount of inflammation. So basically, yeah, but it's a lot more spine focused, but it does happen in your other joints too.
Okay. So, so your back's fucked.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
And so maybe let's start drawing spines together, see what that looks like. But,
I've actually done that a couple times, but my spines aren't good, so I don't have them here.
Well, see, your insides match your outsides because you got a crappy spine too, so it works. Yeah. But I mean, but looking at those things, and it's like, so whatever those feelings evoke, and it's like when I love the first one that you put together of the conflict between the heart and the brain, and it's like, we'll go with relationships because I've been reading about those for something else. And it's like I was reading an article about like why highly intelligent women continuously get into toxic relationships
That's
because
what
they make
that's what that was made during. But I was that was made a long time ago. About 90, not 90, maybe like 75% of that stuff was made when I was a teenager. I don't do as much art now. I try to, but I don't have as much time as I would like. But when I was a teenager, I did a lot of art therapy. I was going through a lot, and one of the things that was an abusive relationship, and so I had made that thing during that time period.
because and that's a really good thing. Like there it is a conflict because your brain is telling you at times like mayday, and then at the other times the other part of the brain and everything else is going like, the way this person is treating me, it's not I don't deserve to be treated like this is wrong, this is shitty. But then they're like, oh, but then the makeup phase of a toxic, and we have these with friendships too, and teenage years are also hell because we've got all these hormones flooding our brains and we're growing again, and blah. It's the worst time period in life.
And a big thing too is, oh, if there's like manipulation involved, like this specific scenario, the guy was a master manipulator, and it was more than, it was bad. It was a kind of thing. It's
Sure.
like where you become at fault. It's like, this is, oh, this is my fault if something happens. I'm ashamed. I'm this, so it's sort of like, am I the bad guy? So that's sort of what it turns into sometimes too. So not only do you have that conflict, between, oh, what's right, but at the same time, it's like that internal conflict, because you could, like, I personally was a little bit in denial about it too, so it's more than just your heart and your brain. It's like your brain and your brain.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was. We didn't even get to the heart first. We're talking about the two brains of going like, this is wrong, but wait, did I cause this? Did I really cause this? No, wait, hold on a minute. Or like, and then, and so that's the very logical part. And then let's just be very honest, relationships are not logical.
Right.
We're not, they're completely like emotional. Or is it that this is how we've been programmed to think about relationships and not really like go, and then, oh, the other fun labels of like, oh, lust, oh, this, you know what, let's just say what it is. When we are teenagers, we confuse sex and love.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they are one. I think we do that as adults too, but like, and we're taught this through it as we're children.
Right.
Like, because thank you, Disney. Like, like, oh, I'm gonna meet my prince.
It's not like that.
Like, oh, because we all need saving in life.
Right.
I learned a lot about myself through relationships, and the fact of, yes, I need saving from myself in bad relationships, because I am perfectly imperfect and I own all of my shit. And so it's this whole thing. And then we don't talk about, we're okay, so back in I don't know if it's changed or not, but back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, you didn't have sex because you saved that for marriage, because when you got married, you get married for love. Okay, that was right, Karen. I mean, that was kind of like the basis. Like,
That's how we were told. That's what we were told.
right.
Absolutely.
Except for where you have hormones and we're horny, and then boys are taught like, go out and like learn how to do this shit before you get married, so then you can settle down.
Right.
And then girls who decide that like they want to experiment for whatever reason, they're the whores. Which, by the way, it's not whores, it's sluts. Because, and we should just
I know. I think that too. It's like, you're a whore if you get paid. You're a slut.
You're a slut if you give it up for free.
And it's
so my whole question is, so that are the boys that are experimenting, are they paying for the hookers, or is it like, because that's what it really should be.
Right. I've always just called them man whores, but I guess that doesn't make sense either if they're
because those are gigolos. So now we've got a whole like stupid thing, right?
But that's,
and then also
the thing about the double standards, because you don't hear people say to men, oh, well, that man's a slut. That man is, oh, he doesn't have any self-respect because he's had, sex with however many people. And they don't say, oh, well, that guy, he's dressing revealing. He shouldn't be wearing that muscle tank, you know. But you can say the same thing. That girl's wearing spaghetti straps. She's a whore. Or, oh, you know, that girl, she's had sex with, you know, I don't know, however many people. She's a whore. So I think that whole whore talk needs to just stop until it's on both ends. You know, it's like you're no different because you're a woman who's, you know, doing whatever sexually, if the man is doing the same thing. It's like the guys get, you know, high fives and compliments. Oh yeah, you know, you hit that or whatever. But then the girl, it's like, oh, go do your walk of shame, slut, or whatever. You know, it's not fair.
No, it's not. And you know, and so that sets things up. And so like life as a teenager is confusing anyway. Then you
Yeah.
throw in sex. Then you throw in like the whole love thing. And it, you know, I really wish, and my as I am going to say this and it's going to be out in the world of, I'm going to, you know what? Kids should be taught about vibrators, and they should be taught about lube, and masturbation be okay.
Well,
And
no,
then they should,
the whole thing is that they need to be taught safe sex, period. They need to know what's right and what's not, because there's going to be times like a teenager should never have to ask themselves, is this okay? Or
right.
what is this going on? I mean, it's not like their parents should say, hey, watch this porn video. You know, it shouldn't be like that. But but that conversation, it should always be, in my opinion, open. I think in schools, they need to, you know, make sure everyone knows what's going on, you know, because there's situations that, you know, that teens can then be put in and they don't know. They don't know. So I think
Right.
being aware
Correct.
is very important.
Well, and I think I wanted to go back to something because I posted this a couple days ago because I thought it was hysterical. And I'm going to offend, and it's going to about what women wear versus what men wear. First off, boys, men, saggy pants. I don't care if it ever comes back. TikTok, seeing your boxers or your boxer briefs, not cute. Doesn't care six pack or not cute. But no lesbian ever, like lesbians have been controlling themselves for decades around other women wearing half naked, you know, walking around half naked.
That's a great point. I hadn't even really ever thought about that.
I've only been approached by 2 lesbians in my life, and I can tell you, I actually was not even wearing cute clothes. They just thought that I was beautiful. And I was like, "Well, thank you, but I'm straight." And they're like, "Thought so, but just thought you should know." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And there was nothing revealing about it. So we need to teach people, like, also, it's not about the clothing and it's not about these things, because you know what, we, again, through media and now especially social media, like oh my God, TikTok. So my daughter loves TikTok, but it's like, oh, so how I part my hair, which is every which way.
I
Like,
heard about that. And it's like my generation, they're like, oh, well, you guys are old now because you wear skinny jeans and have a side part. I'm like, seriously? Like it's this thing, my whole generation, people now in their mid 20s, we are now old because skinny jeans aren't a thing anymore.
Oh, they aren't. Oh,
Well, I don't
no,
care.
they went
I
back to
don't
the
care.
ugly 90s pants, can I tell you? And that wasn't cute either. Like, so
Right.
I'm a skirt and heels girl, so there's no like, you know, I wear jeans to be on like to ride a Harley. Like that's about, or to drive my car. Like that's about the only time, and to keep me like warm in winter. But you know, that's why we have nylons. Like, you know, who cares? But you know, I think too of like when, you know, heartbreak and our mind, what we were going back to and talking about it, it's like we get those emotions and the logic mixed up, and then we get the, you know, depending on your gender, like,
Can I say
and then
something else real quick too about
sure.
that? So about the heartbreak and then the double standards here. The other thing that I have put a lot of thought into, how come then if a man, whatever reason a relationship ends, doesn't work out, or even if it's just, you know, a man pursuing a woman, they're charismatic, they're not giving up, you know, they're working hard, you know, a man can, you know, show up, you know, serenade, playing guitar, whatever the hell men do. And it's like, oh, well, he's so sweet. He cares. He's trying, blah, blah, blah. But then if a woman does that, if a woman shows up at your house, they're a crazy stalker. If a
And-
woman keeps texting you and keeps calling you and says, I want this to work, well, they're a stalker. They're the crazy ex. So how come when the guy does it, it's sweet, but when the girl does it, they're crazy?
absolutely.
The only time it's from Say Anything is John Cusack with the boombox over his head, playing In Your Eyes. That is the only time that is acceptable, and that is by either gender. And but again, too, it's this whole thing of how we're socialized, and that women are supposed to be chaste. And I have a thing of, I know I give more than I receive. I refuse to do that anymore, because it's in my life, it's, you know, about the equation of it, and equity. And I'm going to give 100%, you're going to give 100%. If you're only giving 50%, I'm going to give 50%. And if you give me 2%, zero fucks given, out of my way, I don't have time. But what we were talking about, so, because I'm going to, you know, probably get booed off, you know, anything I do from now on, is like the fact about teaching about sexuality and pleasure. And you know what? It's like, if you can't keep your hands, like, seriously, keep your hands to yourself, jack off 15 million times. But I'm going to tell you this. And the boys that have thinking that like porn stars and everything like that, we don't fuck like porn stars.
I know the girls do not sound like that.
Yeah.
They do not look like
well,
that.
if you hit the right spots sometimes, but I can tell you, and you can ask your girlfriend, your wife, fiance. There is a thing of like, that was the other thing I was going to say. And lesbian porn, honey, if they're lesbians, they're not into you. They're into other women.
I've never understood. The guys, they're like, oh, I want to try to turn. It's like, I don't get it. You can't turn.
Well, okay, I get it. You know what? You have two women, and women's bodies by nature are definitely more interesting than men's bodies. And dick pics, let me tell you something, penises are not that, they're like, oh, okay, it's now circumcised versus uncircumcised, yeah, I'll give it that. But different shape sizes, okay, it's not like, ooh, and then, but like, you see boobs and then men are like, I'm like, okay, they're boobs. I can go to a strip club and I think it's hilarious, and I get into great conversations, and nothing of it turns me on.
Right.
But, you know, and hey, but you know what? I could sit down with you want to throw dollars at me and I'll talk to you. And, you know,
I would like that. Yeah.
It's the biggest scam. I mean, think about it. These women are actually exploiting these men. And if they really actually thought about it, like, don't bitch then about, oh, your girlfriend wants you to take her out to a nice dinner when you just dropped $300 on a really shitty lap dance that, you know what, you're not even having sex. You know,
honestly, though, strippers get such a bad name for themselves.
They do.
And, you know, the thing is, it's kind of like, you have to imagine all the shit they put up with, though, because like, I can't imagine, I'm sure they have guys proposition them. I'm sure sometimes they have guys actually try, you know, and the thing is, it's like, it might, like, I would never be a stripper. I personally wouldn't, but the people who do, I don't know. I think they make a lot of money. If it works for them, it works for them. You know, it's a kind of thing. It's like all back to that whole thing, you know, about shaming, is people just need to, you know, just because it's something you wouldn't do doesn't mean
absolutely
right.
It's not acceptable. I would never be a stripper, but I don't have anything against them, you know.
I would have if they offered good insurance and I could guarantee. You're laughing, but you know, I would. I would take off my clothes for money, and all I had to do was talk to you for 5 minutes, and I get like $300 from you, and I got to show you my tits. But I want Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and I want zero deductible
for some extra income. Then,
right?
No, I'm a little bit older now, but like, yeah, I really actually have thought about this of when my children get to be a little bit older, of sitting them down and making them watch porn with me and going through it and saying of like, this is not real, you know, and that there is a difference between sex, hooking up, fucking, whatever it is, there is a difference. And then this whole thing of making love. You don't make love, you have love, and you can have an emotional experience with sex or not. And let's be honest, I don't know, Aimee, if you have, but Karen, I'm fairly certain you have. The first time always sucks.
Oh,
and when you're with somebody else, you know, when you go to your next partner, it still sucks because you don't know each other and you don't know. So the first time is always shitty. Always.
Always.
And depending where your brain is at the time when you're having it, it can be wonderful, it can be terrible, it could just be, hey, I'm having it. But
And
what I
we
want,
don't have orgasms all the time either. Let's just put that. And unless you're doing it right, unless someone really knows your body, you don't have orgasms all the time.
well, what I'd like to do is really do an expansion of this show if we can next month. And
Yeah.
what I'm going to ask is if each of you maybe has another friend who wants to be part of it, because this is a discussion that women technically don't have with each other. And we have three different generations sitting here. Okay. And as I was listening to something that you were saying earlier, Alicia, now I was brought up to be that good girl. You're not going to have sex until you get married. Um, and I remember when I got divorced and I was 28, 29 years old. And it was like, I have a child, but I don't really know what sex is all about. Okay. And that's the relationship we had. And I had girlfriends who said to me, come on, you're divorced. You can enjoy yourself. And I didn't know what that meant. And I experimented. And I had those same people calling me a whore.
Oh,
And
see, that's
so, it stuck for a long time. But now I look and as I raise my two sons, you've got to do what is best for you.
Right.
Not what mom and dad think is best for you. It's not what your best friends think. If this is what you want to do, go ahead and do it. Do it safely.
right.
Get some information before you do anything. And I loved what you said. The first time is always
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head about, just do what's best for you.
Mhm.
I know some people, I have some friends, relatives who are, I don't want to sleep around. I don't want to sleep around. I just want to do whatever. And you know what? That's fine. As long as they're not, projecting that onto someone else. I have other friends, other people I know who, see sex as, well, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's an enjoyment. We're adults. So, who cares as long as we're safe and, taking precautions. So I've seen both ends. And it's like, I think the biggest thing is just acceptance, is that one side be acceptance of the other side. Don't call them whores, and the other side not tell that side, well, then you need to let loose and, not be a prude. I think it's just a matter of knowing that everyone, has different thoughts and feelings towards it, and that it's just a matter of accepting that, and that no one in any regard should be shamed about sex or their sexuality. They shouldn't be shamed for having a lot of sex or having a little sex or having no sex. It shouldn't matter. It's no one else's business.
Well, and I think too, we will wrap it up, Karen. I
okay.
know. But I think, and then we will next month get a whole bunch of people, women and men. I'd love to have men on here too. So if anyone is interested on talking about, because I love men, I do not man bash. So any men who would like to come on, I welcome that as well. But I think too, there are variances of time. And that there are reasons why women do act out sexually, as there are why men do. And so I don't want anyone to think that people do have sex for all different reasons.
That's
And abstain from it.
Absolutely.
And abstain from it or are disgusted with it. But I will leave on a positive note on that one. But I did want to make sure that that was very clear. Is one, it's none of anyone's business, but we feel the need that we have to tell everybody our business nowadays. So it is everybody's business. But I think the part of it is just, if you love yourself, somebody else's opinion of you doesn't matter. It's none of your business. And the fact of the matter is, and I will leave this because I have been with other people. I've been married twice. And we'll leave it at that. But I'll tell you, one of the most, probably the first times that I had a relation with this person, and who has my heart. And that was probably the most amazing sex I've ever had and will continue to have. And that to me is like a drug.
it makes a difference for sure, whether or not it's someone when I've been with the same person for 8 years now. I'm 25, so like I've been with this guy since I was 17. So again, then the only person I've been having sex with, in 8 years. It's what it should be, and before that, there were some other times where it was not very good, but it's because that's all it was,
Right.
It's different when you actually have like this mutual love and respect with the person, and not to say that, people shouldn't ever go do it, but I do think it's definitely a different feeling,
Oh, the mind-body connection, which is what we started with, the mind-body connection. And then you put on top of it a part of intimacy and a part of you that you give yourself to somebody else when you have that, when you are connected and you are connected then with somebody else, that's when the, poo, like the
intimacy isn't just physical, and
no,
that's the
it's
thing.
mental.
Right, exactly. So I think that's a big part of it too, is, you can go have, sex with a stranger, you can have great sex with a stranger, but it's probably not going to be intimate,
Right.
in that way. So I think that, I think it definitely changes it, So I don't know. I think whatever people do, whatever they do, but it's different,
Well,
It
we
definitely,
need to-
Aimee, will you come back?
Yeah,
Will you
absolutely.
seriously next month come back?
Yeah, I will.
So viewers, please, anyone who wants to be on this show and talk and have this conversation, and that is you identify yourself as male, female, non-binary, trans, lesbians, gays, we want everybody here. And if we have a really cool, like 15 block person,
that would be phenomenal.
we're going to give Karen a run for her money because she's going to have to do a little bit more work that day.
Hey,
But
I love
she
it.
doesn't care. She'll love it and she'll do it. So
I do have a friend who I think will want to do this. I'm going to talk to her. I'm actually going to send her the link once this is up, and I think she'll probably want to come on.
awesome. And age too. We don't care. As long as I will say this though, 18 or older, because I don't think you want your parents sitting
Well,
next to you.
Exactly. Yeah. And we will confirm that as I'm not sure I can have everybody show their ID, but maybe they should hold up their ID before we get started.
That you can do off camera and that you have proof of it.
I said before we go live.
I think a lot of it's though, like, can't you just see for the most part? I mean, like, all of us look like we're over 18. We all are, So unless they look super young.
Well, mentally. But I kid. But I am very serious about it. We want all experiences, and everyone will be honored, because that is the big thing that I have on my show is we might agree. We definitely at times will disagree.
I think it'd be really good to have men's perspective on this too, like how we were talking about like the double standards and all that. Like that's something I personally would love to hear what a man would say, because they can't deny that. I mean, it's clear as day. Well, I mean, they could,
but they might experience it differently, and that is again
see it. Yeah,
important here too.
And we could have it also different generations, because we have 22-year-old boys or men, and we could have 55-year-old men, and they are being completely socialized completely different, as opposed to also 75-year-old men, because porn to them was very different than porn to my cohorts who are 44, 45 years old. And today's porn, I mean, it's free.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure back then, but what do they have, magazines, and now it's like,
well, they still have magazines, but that's not even porn. That's just like Marilyn Monroe. The first Playboy had Marilyn Monroe on it.
Yep.
In black and white.
Well, we will do more of this in 1 month. I look forward to it. Thank you both so very, very much.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
And like I said, we're going to have you on many, many more times.
Great. That's awesome. If anyone wants to buy or sell a house, please call me. I'd like business.
That's right.
There you go.
You have to be #1 this month too.
Yeah, I'm aiming for it.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.